I think most than we can count in our lifetimes. And the second one, both of us are debaters. We both come from the same organization. We both come from Youth Educational Forum. Actually, the only organization in the country that promotes debate and educates young people that debate is a way of life. As debate is life, everything else is prep time. For us, debate transcends cultural differences. We believe that through debating, we can discuss any issues. Nothing is out of topic and nothing is out of reach. Everything can be solved if we discuss it in a constructive manner. And every issue is up for a debate. Nothing is off limits. So, what is debate? In order for you to distinguish debate between a normal discussion, a non-formal discussion, you need to hear the three key elements. The first one is that a debate needs to have two teams opposing a motion. So you need a team that is for the motion, and you need a team that is against the motion. Today, I will be joined by 6 debaters in mixed teams who will present arguments on both sides. The second element is an argument. In order for you to have a debate, you need to have well-structured arguments. The teams will present several arguments which will help you form your decision and your opinion on what side of the motion are you for or against. And the last one, you need a motion. Before I move on to the motion, I would like to welcome the debaters who will be part of today's debate. For the affirmative side debating is Neferi Vasiu as the first speaker. The second speaker is Vesela Trajkovska, and the third speaker is Konstantinos Androupoulos. Debating on the side of position, Bisera Samardzieva, Vangel Georgiev, and Olga Shevitsova. None of these debaters represent their own opinions and beliefs. They're here to present you your arguments on a motion so you as individuals can decide are you for or against the motion. And the motion reads, this House believes that the youth should participate in the country's decision-making from a very young age. We have debaters from the AOCU Debating Society. These are debaters who have been our long-lasting partners. As we said, the international debate community is vast, and we believe that there are no cultural differences that are among us. We believe that as debaters, we can discuss any sort of issue, any sort of topic. Our partners and we, as Youth Educational Forum, have been part of countless debates. We've organized joint tournaments, we've organized public debates, and to date, I think for the 100th time, we will be debating together in mixed teams to show you that there are issues for young people that both countries face. Both North Macedonia and Greece are facing the same issues regarding youth unemployment, quality of education, and quality of life. It is for you to decide whether you think that if we put young people in parliament from a very young age, these issues will be solved, or whether this will exacerbate the situation. Without further ado, I would like to call upon the first speaker of the affirmative to open this debate. Here.
Hello everyone. I'm proud to welcome you from the affirmative side of this House. Today the motion reads before us, this House believes that the youth should participate in the country's decision-making from a very young age. Before I move on with my constructive case to prove to you why we believe that, I would like to start with a definition in order to show you what we will be talking about today. So, when we were talking about a very young age, we believe that the young people should be able to participate in the country's decision-making from the age of 16 years old. And when we talk about the participation in the country's decision-making, we are talking about not only the ability to vote, but also to being able to get elected as an MP or in a local level. And before I move on to my constructive case, I would like to begin by stating the status quo. Why do we believe that today we need this kind of change? But right now, we believe that the current system, the current political system isn't working in a beneficial way for solving prominent youth issues, as I'm going to mention later in my speech. And since we're seeing that these issues are continuing to affect young people, and not only them. So, first of all, we believe that with this kind of the eligibility of young people to be able to vote and get elected, we believe that the problems of youth can be more successfully solved and handled. Right now, too many problems affect the youth as they exit the school years and they move on to work or to study in university. So we have unemployment, we have the lack of quality jobs for young people to be a part of. Young people right now have a problem of finding jobs that are in their area of expertise, of studying, and they end up doing something that doesn't fulfill them, that isn't something they want to be a part of originally. There are other problems as well, the quality of education right now and where it focuses, or the general quality of life. That is a problem that affects not only the youth, but the general public, such as the climate change or the affordable housing for everyone. So basically, right now, what we're having upon us is basically young people having other people making the decisions for them, but without them in real life. Why do we believe that this isn't an effective way of handling issues? Older people aren't actively or directly affected by these kind of problems, or they just used to be affected by them, so right now it isn't in their prominent interest. So basically, they don't have these issues as a priority to be solved, and they're actually missing the youth's point and spin on them, their perspective. As a consequence, these kind of problems aren't always effective on these people aren't always effective on how they approach these problems and how they handle them. And because, as we can see, the stakes aren't as high for them as they are for the young people. So basically, in comparison, we see that that affects not only the way they tackle these kind of issues, because we see that they continue to affect the youth and be a big part of their lives, and also they don't really set them as a priority to tackle them, and their overall willingness to handle them isn't as big as the youth's willingness. Secondly, we believe that there is a huge importance of youth participation in the political procedures, such as the legislation-making process. All of this can lead to more effective and better decisions in a whole. Why? Why is that? Young people can get more involved in the process. They can inform themselves, they can learn more about them, and they can give their fresh perspective about them. So, for important issues such as, for example, the climate change, which is an issue that has been prominent for years, but right now, due to youth activism, light has been shed more on this issue, and its importance has come to the surface. And other issues that affect them more directly. In the long-term impact, these people are more inclined to be more active and participate more, so they can make the personal impact on the world by passing bills, raising awareness as a whole from a much more vocal position and standpoint as a whole. So we believe that in this way, with their participation, they can make a better impact, a long-lasting better impact on the local community, on the national, and even in the international community. So for all those reasons, we believe that you should stand with us today. Thank you.
We'll structure her speech in 3 parts. In the first part, as you see and heard, she started by defining the motion. What does that mean, basically? She explained to you that at a very young age, according to their team, are people who are from 16 years of age and who we would like to see them in Parliament, be MPs, and be able to vote for MPs in Parliament. In her second speech, in her second part of the speech, she presented you with arguments. And in the third part, she explained why she thinks that you should be on their side. The arguments that we heard from Nefeli are that young people have current issues and problems that the older generation are not affected by. And in the second argument, we heard that they have some sort of political beliefs to which the older generation are not really so inclined. So what do we expect in the format from the negative first speaker? From the negative first speaker, we expect them to follow the format. We expect them to also speak for 5 minutes so we can have a fair debate. And we also expect them to tackle the issues that were presented by the first affirmative speaker, but also present you with their own arguments. In that case, I call upon Bisera Samardzieva to open the side of the side opposition.
I will first present my own case, then the opposition case, and then I will refer to the arguments that the proposition made so we can see what the flaw in their logic is. So the first argument of the opposition team is the constraint of the political mechanism. So if we look at the political system, we can see that it's a very functional mechanism that also has a lot of kinks, which means that it's not very perfect. It has a specific way of working, which if we put young people in it, they will not know how to work in it. Because the system, and we can all agree on this, is very flawed and is very much a very dirty game. Politics is all about lobbying, and it's all about making connections, and it's all about knowing people. Because we do vote on parties, we don't vote on individuals. We need to know that within those parties, there's always about making a vote, and there's always about knowing who you need to talk to make a vote. If we put 16-year-olds in governments where they will be part of parties, they will not know how to play this game, and all they will do is fall under the influence of people who are superior and people who have been in the game much longer than them. We will put people who do not know enough about life and enough about politics, enough about the whole economic and political system of the country that they live in, and we'll put a lot of decisions in their hands. Yes, they are knowledgeable of things like the educational system and its flaws, but they cannot make decisions on things that are bigger than that. We cannot put young people under the influence of people who will most likely manipulate them in a way that we will not get any benefit of putting young people in politics. We will only still get the decisions that the party is trying to make. What I want to say is, we will not get the effect that the proposition team is explaining, because if we put the people in the parties, we will still get the ideologies of the parties, not the ideologies of the people. That connects me to the second argument, which is how we vote. As I previously said, we don't vote on the individuals, we vote on parties. They are saying that we will only vote on the individuals, that we will have people in the government and decision-making bodies who will be young and who will be representing the youth. But that's not how our system works, because we don't vote on people based on their attributes, we vote on their ideologies. What will happen to our country if we only vote on people based on how old they are, on what school they go to, or what they look like? We need to vote on people who stand by their values and who stand by our values, because we need people who will make a change in this country. The young people will not have that power because, as I previously said, they will be swayed by other people. We need people who have the power to actually stand somewhere in a room and say their values, and that will not be manipulated by other people. We can't vote based on what we think they will say. We need to vote on what they stand by. As an example for this, we have a lot of parties which have members that are young, but do those members stand by the youth? No, those members have been long before manipulated by the party, and they only stand by the party's ideologies. So still, we don't vote for youth, we don't vote for 16-year-olds who are our schoolmates, we vote for the parties that we have been against for years before. So what do we get? We don't get anything. As the proposition have already mentioned, the current system isn't solving current youth issues. Yes, it isn't. But that doesn't mean that putting youth in the current system will change it, because the system is flawed by itself. We won't gain anything by putting young people in an already flawed system, because they will just get pushed down the drain. What will we get? The youth issues still won't be solved. They still will be upvoted by people who have much more power in the political system. They also said that young people have other people making decisions for them, but still disconnects to that. They still will have other people making decisions for them. They will just be a paper mache picture of what a perfect government looks like. We want to be represented in government, but we still won't be. We just will think we'll be represented, but still there will be a lot more people who are against us and who do not know what our values are and who do not know what we fight for. We fight for equality, we fight for inclusion, we fight for educational reforms, but that doesn't mean that we will get them if we put young people in a place where they will still be upvoted and talked against and not believed. You say that youth can bring a fresh perspective, but what do we have now? Youth are still not believed, even though we are fighting in the streets for what we believe in. What will we get if we put us in a room with people who are much stronger than us, who are probably against the beliefs that we have in the first place? We need to take action in another way, and all the actions that we want to take will be discussed in the second and third speeches of my opposition case. But what I want to say is, we have other ways that we can make a change in this world, and putting us in an already flawed system of a government which is not for us and does not fight for us will not solve anything that we stand for. We need to find other ways to solve all of these issues, and we need to start from the bottom and work our way up, and not go into the hands of an already flawed system which is not going to help us in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Visera. As you heard, she divided her speech in two parts. Firstly, she attacked the arguments of the affirmative team, and this is basically what you as debaters have to do. You have to focus also on the side of the opposition and the side of affirmative. You need to focus on the arguments that are presented by the opposite team, but also present your own arguments. The arguments that we heard from the opposition side is that the political system is flawed, and if we put young people in a flawed political system, they will be used as pawns by the older generations. This is something to think about, because we have adjusted the format of debating, and apart from these speeches, we also want you to take part in the debate. What will happen next? I will call the second speaker of the affirmative, and then the second speaker of the negative team, and then we will give you 15 minutes to ask your questions. I encourage all of you to raise your hands, think about the motion, and ask the speakers or present your own points to the speakers regarding the motion and the debate. After the question and answer section, we will also be hearing from the third speakers of both the affirmative and the negative team. But before your questions, I would like to welcome Vesela Trajkovska to the floor to present the second speech for the affirmative side.
Thank you, Teddy. Today I will answer 3 questions during my speech. Why is it important to be represented in a democratic system? What is the impact of passing a law? And why are these 2 things important, especially for young people? So, democracy is a system based upon people selecting their representatives. Those representatives further on participate in the decision-making process. They pass laws, they discuss issues, etc. So, those that are eligible to vote choose their representatives. Meaning, if you are if you're a part of a minority group and would like the minority you're a part of to be more represented, you would choose people that represent you. If you are a young person that wants more educational reforms, you wouldn't choose someone who has passed the process of education many years ago. You would choose someone that is currently in the educational system, because those people are the ones that are mostly affected by it and can make the best and most effective reforms in that specific area. So, not being able to vote, since currently young people at the age of 16 are not able to vote, means that you cannot choose your eligible representative, which means that your issues will forever remain unaddressed in the parliament or any other decision-making body. So, being a part of that of a certain group means that you are aware of that group's position in society and the problems that group faces, which means that you would be an adequate representative of that group, since you feel what the group is feeling as well, and you would be motivated to solve the group's issues, because as I mentioned, you are also feeling those issues of the group. It is completely inadequate to expect someone who is 50 years old and going to retire in a few years, or someone who is even 30 years old and has graduated from college many years ago, to be aware of the current position of people that are in high school. So it is very weird to expect from them to be motivated enough and want to solve the problems regarding education, and specifically problems that high school students face. Further on, young people currently are actively participating in politics, but not through actively proposing laws and passing bills, but rather through protests, petitions, boycotts, maybe volunteering, trying to do some sort of change through a non-governmental organization, etc. But the things that actually make a change are creating new laws and passing new bills. No educational system, for example, can be changed unless there are certain reforms that are proposed, then voted into the parliament, and then later on, through many years, implemented into the system. So young people currently can only use certain passive ways of participating, making suggestions, doing boycotts when they are not pleased with something, etc. But they don't have the chance to actually be heard into the parliament, be elected, elect people who would represent them in the parliament, then further on mention their issues into the parliament, and then have a chance of a certain law being created in order to, in a few years, solve that specific issue. I would like to give an example of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She is she's the youngest member of the parliament in the United States, and before she even mentioned that ridiculous new law about the Green New Deal, nobody in the parliament talked about climate change and doing something right now actively in order to battle that issue. Yes, pollution is something that haunts us all, but nobody actively talked about it, nobody got actively involved in the process of solving it. And when she mentioned the issue and proposed a bill that was ridiculous, people actually started talking about it. So awareness was raised on that specific issue. What I mean to say with this is that if you are not a high school student, you wouldn't be motivated to mention the problems of high school students in the parliament. If you are not a college student, you wouldn't bother with the college student problems, etc. If you are not a person who is retired, you wouldn't bother with the problems of retired people. That is the way people function, and it is only natural to fight for the problems that you or the group you are a part of faces. But the problem is that the youth is not represented. People who are retired have representatives in the parliament. People who are 50 years old have representatives. People who are 40 years old have representatives in the parliament. Do not have representatives in the parliament. Only 2% of all of the parliaments in the world are consisted of people under the age of 30. And in such a scenario, it is not okay of you to expect that the issues of young people will be addressed and solved if young people aren't actively participating in the decision-making processes and actually proposing laws and creating bills. So my team stands for the fact that it is better to be represented in a flawed political system or to not be represented or heard at all, and your issues to remain unaddressed. Thank you.
As you heard, Vesela presented a lot of arguments about the political system, political structures, alternative way of youth participation in the country. She also talked about the USA system. She also talked about several arguments that are pertaining to youth participation. It is important to note that neither Vesela nor the rest of the 5 speakers are expert on political analysis, are expert on political systems, are expert on youth rights. I will use this time to encourage all of you to take part in the debate societies in your countries. It is important to note that all 6 speakers here only had half an hour to prep for this debate. This is what debate does. It helps you shape arguments on any sort of motion and topics. It helps you compose speeches in less than half an hour on a motion you have just heard right now. It helps you explain yourself in a more structured way, and it promotes education and promotes critical thinking. There are debate societies in both of your countries, and I encourage all of you to take part in that. Before we go to your questions, I would like to call Vangel Georgiev to present the second speech from the side of opposition.
Alright, good afternoon everyone. So, before we start with presenting this side of the house, we will first analyze their case and show why there's like a huge flaw in what they presented. First off, one of the major points that they presented is usually that youth are more relatable to the issues that they know regarding to education, and therefore they can more easily make good decisions with regards to that current topic if they are in power and they can influence decisions. However, first off, youth are included usually in decision-making bodies, specifically in the Ministry of Education and communal educational bodies within the high schools. Therefore, there is inclusion within the decision-making. And second of all, if we follow the logic that they need to be young in order to know education, then how we can support the logic that if they are politicians in the parliament, how can they decide in healthcare system or the pensions when, for instance, they never even paid for tax and they never even participated in the healthcare system or never participated in the pension fund. So how can we expect that someone who is so young can decide on such an issue by solely stating that they can help because they know relatable issues? Well, they know maybe relatable issues towards education. However, the spectrum is much wider within our society than just education. And second of all, they specifically emphasize the point of how AOC is such a young politician in the American system. However, we will later show in our case that AOC actually works in our favor, and talking about environment is not such a new thing that we engage and embark upon in 2018 or 19. It is something that the whole society has embarked for the last 20 years, with the beginning of Al Gore and then with Bernie, but only times have changed now, so now it is more influential to talk about environment. So let's focus on three major issues that we will talk in our case. First off, they talk about, we clearly emphasize the whole flaw that exists in current political system, but we never explain how that flaw actually reflects within this system. For instance, neither of the sides by this moment have explained how actually the political system functions. Either if you look at the political system in our country or Republic of Greece, you would see that usually if you want to engage in politics, you have to be part of a political party. You have to be on a political list. So in order to vote for a young person, that young person has to be on a specific political list. So when you go to elections and you vote for a specific person, you don't do that. You don't get to do that. You vote for the political party, and the political party proposes the young people who will be on that specific list. That means that only a small percentage of young people can be part of the political list, and thus you can vote for them. However, since there's such a small number, and usually they depend on whether the political party will put them on the political list, they're easily swayed with regards to voting in the parliament. They're easily pressured and coerced with regards to deciding on such an issue. Therefore, they don't have such an independent voice. And even if you look at the case that there are independent young people, young politicians in the parliament, usually, since there are independent young politicians, they are usually outvoted by the strong political parties within the parliament. Now, let's move on to the second more major point with regards to how we will change us on the side of the negative side of this debate, how will we change the whole system. So today there exists like a huge youth paradox of participation. For instance, the political structure doesn't work for the youth of today. What does that mean? As the affirmative side said, usually if you want to join in politics, you would either have to join by voting or joining a political party. However, we see that there's like a huge tendency in today's society where there is like this interest of young people to join politics. This is easily seen since a lot of people don't go to elections. There's like a slow, like a decreased voting turnout, and this can easily be seen by the referendum of United Kingdom whether to leave Brexit, whether to leave the European Union or not. More than 70% of the people who voted to leave the UK were old people, and there was like a huge decrease of young people with regards to voting on that referendum. Therefore, there's like a huge tendency of disinterest in politics. So, why is this the case? Because today, youth see political participation a lot differently than what it actually is. For instance, there are different ways of political participation for youth. Usually today, the youth wants to join political participation through movements and protests. So why do they do that? Because they feel like by joining a movement or participation, you actually strive for a more value-oriented approach. It is not just for your personal gain per se, but rather something that you feel as there is a mutual value between you and your co-peer, that you go on a march, on a protest, and you're a part of a bigger movement. And those movements are clearly existing all over the world. If we talk about student protests, if you talk about Fridays for Future, we can see that there's like a huge lead to like policy change, that it is still happening, even though the young people are not part of the decision making in the room where the politicians are voting, but they're still effectively leading to political change. And this all leads to more inclusive movements. Inclusive movements, which is like a simplified concept of political participation. It is an inclusive movement because it doesn't include you based on your race or the color of your skin, but rather your mutual value that you believe and fight for environment or equality or etc. And our last point that we want to present is the required change that there is. If you embark on the path to be on a high-ranking political position, you usually have to deal with the burden that that position has. And usually a person as of 16 years of age doesn't have that capability to follow with that burden that usually comes. Why is this the case? Because they usually don't understand fully the impact of the whole game. Meaning that if you have to go to the parliament and decide on different issues, you will be fine when you decide on more bike lanes on the streets and more educational things. However, when it comes to healthcare and pensions, you usually decide upon issues that will change and shape the future for the next 10 to 15 years of society. And usually young people, unfortunately, are not knowledgeable when it comes to this kind of issues that they have to decide. Therefore, a better approach that we propose is that we rather change the current system that exists. Therefore, we need more power when it comes to student bodies and more power to youth bodies and advisory youth councils. We need more of these bodies which are more genuine when it comes to forming, which are only participated by eager young people who want to change the society. And therefore, we need reform with regards to these bodies. The needed reform that we need is more of a greater power that this body needs, greater power in decision making that will provide us with better decisions. For instance, decisions such as ban of plastic straws, as in the European Union, that was highly influenced by the youth bodies that exist today. Therefore, we ask of you to take into consideration the importance that there is with regards to the informal participation of the youth with regards to our community. Thank you.
We've heard that there are youth rights that can only be solved if there are youth MPs in Parliament. And this way, other young people will be more motivated to participate in the political process. On the side of opposition, we heard the flaws of the current political system, and we heard that there are alternative ways to which young people choose to take part in the policy making in their country. And now it's your turn. The motion before you is this House believes that the youth should participate in the decision-making process from a very young age. I would like to encourage all of you who have any questions, points, arguments to address them to the speaker, or to just debate among yourselves. There are volunteers with microphones that will help you if you just raise your hand.
Hello, same thinking, the same staff after 10 years, do they still categorize as youth?
Thank you. We'll be taking several questions and then we'll have the teams answer those questions.
So is it okay if I...
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So, as I understood the affirmation side, they stated that the youth controls the future, which I would agree upon, but nobody is born with something they think. They usually get their knowledge passed on, which comes to the conclusion that the older generations basically tell their staffs and they give them information which they could think upon. So I would just like to say, if the youth takes advice from the older generations, is actually the youth controlling the international relationships with all other countries?
Thank you.
You rely on the argument that we should exclude the youth from the decision-making procedures because they are easily swayed. Shouldn't we raise the limit of age for those participating if we take into consideration that already experienced MPs are being swayed by the line of their party? And the second stage of this point of information, how is the rhetoric that denies the youth the right to participate different from the rhetoric that was denying women the same right because they could be easily swayed by their peers, spouses, or parents. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions and thank you for your support to the opposition team. I would now like to call the speakers to answer the questions, and then we have a second round of question and answers. Would the side governments like to answer the first questions?
International relations and all those things that are a part of, all those things that members of parliament face every day hold the same impact as the quality of education, youth unemployment, youth mobilization, etc. So all of those are issues that require the same amount of attention in the parliament. So just as an older person would get to decide on education reforms, a younger person should get the right to get informed, learn about how foreign affairs function and things like that, and then also get to decide on those questions as well. Because the parliament is a body that works together. Each side, each age group gets to have their impact. But the problem currently is that the youth has no impact. Other age groups have hold all of the impact at the moment.
I think that there was also a question about what is your definition of young people and how do you justify it?
Okay, so about the first point about the categorization of youth, we believe that, we can say that a person from 15 to 29 years old is a young person, and even if they have some same ideas and beliefs carrying on to the next stage of their lives, we don't believe that they're still considered youth, because even if you have the same beliefs and ideas and you carry on to the next stage of your life, it is not necessary. It is the progress of life itself that will lead you to have different problems, different priorities, and different things in mind. So even if you start from the same starting point and the same way of thinking, still you have different issues that you have to tackle on firstly before you can move on to other stuff. So we categorize youth not only by age or beliefs or ideas, but also because of all the common things, the common problems and adversities that bind them together.
I think it was only the two questions that came from the middle, right? So maybe I can answer the rhetoric about the woman, and then you can try to answer the other one. So with regards to women, we see that the rhetoric we see it is completely different. Like when you talk about women, that was it was clear discrimination based on sex. Just because they were women, they were not allowed to take participation, bigger participation in society. When we talk about youth specifically, we don't talk about specific sex. We're talking about human beings. We're talking about their developments, how they progress, their knowledge. So we cannot expect that a younger person will be such knowledgeable and have gone through such major issues throughout his world to know from experience how to deal with different issues. Therefore, we believe that there needs to be a bigger process where you grow and you develop yourself before you make impactful decisions for society for the next 10 to 15 years. Of course, there's also exceptions in this case, like a lot of young people are prepared from a very early age. However, we cannot talk about specific exceptions, but rather we have to talk about the average youth person in society.
So the second question was, should we raise the age for being involved in political parties and parliament and such? And my answer connects to his answer. Well, I don't think we should do that, because I don't think that there is always the risk of manipulation manipulation over all parties, all political parties and all members of the political parties. But what we're talking about is that when you're 16, that political manipulation is much more easier to be done than when you're even 18, because you do go through changes in life. You've probably finished high school, you've probably had a job, you have gone through things that have made you a different person, and that you have different viewpoints over the world. And at 16, you don't have that. You still don't have that kind of life experience, and you're still very easily influenced by a lot of people, not just people that are superior than you in a political party, but even by your friends and teachers and your peers and such. So that's the difference that we're talking about. There's always the risk of manipulation in everywhere that you go, especially in political parties. But what we're talking about is that when you're 16, that influence is much higher because you still don't know who you are as a person, much less what you stand for and what kind of decisions you need to be making in the political setting.
Okay, I think we have 5 more minutes for another round of questions. Do we have someone who would like to take part in the debate? I see a hand here.
Hello, I have a question for the affirmative team. What about corrupt youth? What about a few from the youth that are elected to represent the youth but actually push someone else's agenda?
Thank you for the question. Do we have another one? Yes, we have 2 more in the back.
Hello, I want to ask how we know that the young person in parliament would be part of the PARC, let's say, system, may act with strong voice and opinion to change the system and not be changed by the system. Otherwise, we have to accept that young people are just puppets under the power of older and not individual human beings with opinion and beliefs.
Thank you. And the last question for today, I think. Yes.
I don't have a question actually. It's a point kind of. I think that older members of parliament don't take youth seriously. And I think that that's the main issue. We have to solve that. So we can have part in the parliament or can advise the older members of parliament. As he said that we're more relatable to education problems, youth problems, and etc. Thank you.
Thank you.
In so many matters, how can we ensure that it's going to be harmonious and in that way?
Thank you, I think.
To answer the questions regarding the youth participation in parliament. So if you want to make a chocolate cake for your friend and you want to see whether your friend likes chocolate cake, first of all, you need chocolate in order to make the cake, and then further on see whether your friend likes the cake or not. If they don't like chocolate, you will make them strawberry cake. If they don't like strawberry, then you would make them, I don't know, pineapple cake. So you cannot be sure that young people aren't going to be corrupt in the parliament, just like you're not sure that older people aren't going to be corrupt. And there are corrupt politicians in the parliament right now, and then there are politicians that are not so corrupt. But the first step is to actually allow young people to enter the parliament and give them a chance to express their ideas and their solutions for the issues that affect them the most. You cannot be certain of anything for young people, just like you are not certain for any other age group, minority group, men versus women, etc. You cannot be certain of any of that, but the first step is to give them actual representation, because that is what a democratic system is based upon. You cannot expect a democracy to even try to fix its corrupt parts without it being a democracy at first. You cannot expect it to work if representation is not respected within all groups, whether it's by sex, minorities, gender, whatever, age, etc. And about the question for young people being heard in the parliament, of course that people are different and members of parliament are different. There are some who are experienced but still aren't heard. For an example, Bernie Sanders is a very old, experienced politician, but he wasn't heard in the previous presidential elections in America because people, I don't know, didn't match their opinions with his, didn't support him. So he's trying again in these presidential elections. So nothing is exclusive to only young people. They're not the only ones that are able to become corrupt. They're not only eligible for manipulation or any other thing that can be mentioned about any other age group or member of parliament. I hope that answers your question.
The idea is that if a team is composed of 3 speakers, the first speaker will open and present the case for that specific side. He or she will present the arguments, and then the second speaker will defend those arguments and will attack the arguments of the opposing team. It is the job of the third speaker to summarize the whole debate and persuade the judge or the audience of why you should side with their side or why the judge should vote in their favor. To that effect, I would like to call the third speaker from the affirmative side, Konstantinos Andropoulos.
So actually it's Konstantinos Andonaropoulos, but it's okay. So, dear audience, fellow teams, thank you all for being here today, and please allow me, in my speech, to sum up why we do believe that this motion is beneficial. Actually, I will prove to you why the motion will be beneficial in three different levels. Personal, social, and political. Let's start with the personal level. So, coming early in their lives, in the decision making, this will make youngsters more politically aware. It will raise their communication skills and offer them the chance to become earlier more responsible. Also, this will affect their arguments. They will get their arguments to grow stronger, be more precise on what they want to express. Moreover, they will get to meet other youngsters, other youths, and exchange opinions and ideas. Let's move on to social level. Obviously, if each individual is benefited personally, and more people are affected by politics, and more people come to engage with politics, then this will end up with a society more enriched with more and more politically aware people. Also, it is commonly accepted that youngsters are better in understanding and using technology. We live in a society that technology plays a crucial role. We live in a society that technology is all around us. Technology surrounds us. So people who can cope up with this environment of progress and technology, then they can bring new, fresh ideas that they may benefit the whole society. I will give you an example here. I remember a guy who found a way to transform seaweed. Yes, seaweed that we may think as trash. No, he didn't. He found actually a way to transform it to ordinary, common items. He made up a company. It's called Phi, if I remember correct. He compresses the seaweed and he makes many different items like rackets to play in the beach or cases for our phones. And this is only one example of one idea. Imagine what will happen if more and more young people come into the parliament. Finally, the political level. Let's think that for a moment. Imagine what will happen if more and more people, more young people in the age, are in the parliament. Then, more people of the same age will support them. This will transform their attitude towards politics. Then, from a big group of people being indifferent about politics, then we will get to a group of people interested in politics. So, more and more youngsters will get to be interested and informed about political issues. This thing may also result in closing the gap between generations. Right now, as you know, in the parliament, people of older generations express their own generations. If young people participate in decision-making in a parliament, their more different generations will come together. So basically, we are talking about a more diverse political landscape. For all the above reasons, we support this motion and we beg you to do the same. Thank you all for your attention.
I would like to welcome, and I'm not going to mess this one up, Olga Sheltsova to close the debate for the side opposition and close the debate in general. Here, here.
Thank you for the opportunity to close this amazing debate. It was very interesting. So, first of all, I want to discuss about the other side that we heard about the decision of the need to create new laws for the young people. what we believe is that the old generation also can to create new laws for the young people, because if I'm in the parliament and I'm also a member of this society, probably I have children, I have family, I have some young people that I'm caring about. I'm interested to create some laws for those people and to help them. But the young people, they're more likely to care more about their own needs. Yes. So we believe that the young people, sure, they should to participate on the decision and to be active. But we believe that it's not the right way. They don't should to go to the parliament. Why? Because even if they are so productive, if they are not informed enough, if they don't have the experience that the old generation have, they're less likely to take the right decision. We are talking about politics. Politics is a very difficult system. Each party wants to be better than the other parties, so they want to have the majority of votes and stuff like that. So we think that the young people may be manipulated in this system, and because we are talking about this kind of decision, each step and each everything is very important. So if one decision is wrong, it may create harm at all the society and the economy. So for the other side, it's enough if we have some young people in the parliament, but for us it's very important the outcome of this, the outcome, and for the young people, but also for all the society. What is the difference between the decision in the parliament and the other kind of participation, like a specific organization and stuff like that? The difference is that the other stuff is also very important for the young people, but they cannot harm the society and the economy and all the system so much. And also they will feel that they are helping and they will help us. But let's think the situation where we already have young people in our parliament. And even we have these problems in the systems, it means that even if young people will agree with some decisions just because they're members in one party, but the other young people don't believe. It's not that the other young people really want, just because they did that. The other youngs is more likely to be apathetic with that, even if this decision is not the perfect. So, yes. We believe that the most important thing is to care about what we want to gain. and not about the age of the participation or everything else. So, yeah, for all this reason, please stay and agree with us. Thank you.
In an hour since we started the debate. In an hour, we heard about youth problems, which both groups face in both countries. We've also heard about the differences in ideologies that exist between young people and older generations. And we talked about different systems of political engagement which young people can take part in. At this point, it is important to note that it is not the job of the debaters to persuade themselves. No debater will persuade the other debater that they should switch sides. It is the job of a debater to persuade the judge or the audience to vote either for their side or the opposition team's side. I hope that you enjoyed this debate. I hope that you find it informational, and I hope that we've encouraged you enough to take part in your debate societies in the country. And finally, I would like to invite all of you to applaud and encourage these 6 young people who shared the stage for me today.
And thanks to the both teams for this wonderful debate. So very good on time, bravo. And now, finally, the Sarmatic, no, the lunch. And we will have the chance to experience something different, not a typical lunch as it is for these kind of events. And because of that, I would like to invite Biljana Stojčevska, which is the main one when it comes to organizing this event, to explain what this lunch will be. Please be very short.
Yes, we are, because we put a lot of efforts for the next element. We wanted 2 teams, gastronomy teams, to prepare together food, and our friends from Thessaloniki UNESCO Youth Club believes very much that we are very much connected through the food. We tried to implement directly in the kitchen this element. So this morning, 6 people who are 6 young people, 6 students from 2 gastronomy schools, one from Skopje and one from Thessaloniki. They were preparing part of the food for today, and we wanted this to present for you, because you to be aware that there will be food prepared jointly, together, 2 teams. So, in the upper floor, there will be served food for all of you, and one corner is mutual corner, let's say, Greek Macedonian mutual corner. So I am saying to all of you, enjoy in the lunch today, and we will invite you after for the mutual concert.